Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Full Exposure with me, your host, Brian Kelly. Hey, today's guest is a good one. It's Michelle McKormick. And without any hyperbole, I can say that Michelle McKormick is a Michigan morning radio legend. She started her career when she was only 19 years old, way back in the 80s. Michelle's been a trailblazer in the radio industry that is still often deeply misogynistic and a boys' club, to say the least. Michelle admits she's part cheeseball, but she has always been deadly serious about her career. Over time, Michelle learned to call her own shots and fights gender pay disparity whenever she can. Her long career has depended on people liking her on air, and the audiences have always embraced her. As a result, she has both thrived and survived in an extremely tough business. Today, Michelle loves to mentor women at any stage in their broadcasting careers and is deeply committed to the West Michigan community. In this episode, we unpack a lot about her career, but we also unpack a lot about some great celebrity stories about David Lee Roth, Barbra Streisand. I also share a story about Whoopi Goldberg. We also spill some dirt on our current radio partner, Tony Gates, on WLAV of the Tony Gates Show. Ultimately, this conversation highlights many of the pillars of Michelle's success as a female trailblazer, and we can all learn from that, right? She is a goofball. I love her. She's amazing. Michelle, you are unto yourself, and that's why I wanted to talk to you. And I think you're going to enjoy this episode. We are beginning conversations about with companies that are interested in sponsoring this podcast, and hope to develop a relationship with a couple of key companies that would like to associate with us and help us do a lot more with this podcast. So if you're interested at all in engaging in a conversation with me about what a relationship might look like, or looking for a good fit that's mutually a good fit. We just don't want what we want, people. We want to come to a mutually beneficial arrangement here with sponsorships. So anyway, reach out to me at my email address, brian@briankellyphoto.net. And if you are just in the audience and you enjoy this podcast, the best thing you can do is share it and subscribe to it. And when I say subscribe to it, it's still free, people. Subscribe to it on iTunes or Podbean or Stitcher or Spotify or Google Play or any other podcasting platform that you listen to podcasts on. It'll help our rankings and help more people find us, which is great. That's pretty much the pitches. As always, there's one last pitch. This podcast is currently only brought to you by me, Brian Kelly Photography and Film, and Brian Kelly Productions. If you are embarking on a photography or video project this summer or later this fall, please reach out to me. I'd love to discuss how we could collaborate on that project together. Okay? All right, that's the pitch. Here's Michelle McKormick. You're going to like it, and away we go. I'm speeding, sir.
I'm pretty. I can't. Super pretty. I can't know stuff. It's hard knowing
Except
stuff.
you are the only guest who's like, you need, what did you just say about
I'll
my
tell you
mics?
right now, what'd you draw? A couple hundred on these tin cans of microphone?
With the mix board, with the headphones, I got like 400 hundo.
4 hundo in it? 4 hundos?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, these are like 2 Coca-Cola cans and some string.
Really?
You need if you're going to make this cute little podcast thing fly, this little hobby, get some good mics.
All right. Well, you sound like you've had a career in radio and broadcasting, and you might know some things. So maybe I should just listen to Michelle McKormick.
I drink and I know things. What happens?
I drink to know less.
Sure, microphones or a nice, sensible Sennheiser. Pop a little bit on the microphone. Okay. It matters.
All right.
It matters.
All right. Well,
hi, Brian Kelly.
It's about the portraits. It's about the portraits. It's about the conversation after the portraits. It's not about my beefy baritone.
I think that baritone could be beefier if you had a
Let me drop the lows on this. The midtones. Hold on 1 second.
You don't look like your voice.
I feel great.
Now you look like your voice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Berry.
See?
Little Barry White.
It matters.
I'm playing with it. See, now I'm up real high.
No, too tinny. No,
it's very tinny. Let's get that baritone going.
Way better.
Yeah.
It matters.
It does.
Equality. There's nothing worse than listening to a fantastic podcast and being in radio and wearing headphones for 90% of my life.
Yeah.
You hear this great podcast, and then they're like talking off mic, and you just want to go, if it's here, just the rule of thumb, if it's important enough to say, it's important enough to say on mic.
All right. I'm going to
never off microphone.
We're all just going to lean in a little bit. We're going to lean in.
These you have to eat pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thanks for coming.
I'm very excited.
You're just you've been a part of everybody's lives in this community for so long. And I know you hear that all the time, but it's really true. So how do you deal with people that just, okay, here we go right off that. Let's roll up our sleeves.
Right.
How do you deal with that? Just people feeling like they know you.
I can't stand it. No,
Yeah.
I really love it. It is, but you do forget, because when somebody says, hey, I know you, I'll go, from school, did we date, or is it from radio? Like, how do we know each other? Like, what?
Yeah.
And I started at WGRD when I was 19, and 19. I am 54. So I've been doing, I left to work in Detroit for 5 years, which was fantastic. And I worked in Jersey for a year. And then, but for the most part.
Boomerang back. You're boomerang.
I have been here since I'm 19 years old, on the air. So, yeah, people do feel like they know you. I think it's great. It's the biggest compliment.
Yeah, it is. Well, especially in a business, I think that is so known for turmoil, upheaval, unfairness. You've been there. You've been fighting and swinging and at the top of the morning game for so long.
Boys Club.
Yeah.
In the worst way, it's been the Boys Club for years.
Is that changing?
A little bit. A little bit. I always have said, they go, how do you, because there are women in radio who, it's always the news girl or the weather girl, in morning radio. And so I really work to be the co-host or the host or this. Yeah. And I always say, I can say what any guy can say.
Yeah.
It's just about being a good broadcaster, not a good female broadcaster. So fighting that has been weird. But the pay scale, that's where we get hit. That's where they kick you in the bra.
Well,
right in the cojones, right in the
and then I read something the other day that's still in Michigan. That it's like the pay disparity between males and females is like 22 or 23 cents an hour. Like that's not a little amount of money.
No, it's
and in the
lot.
radio, like it was sort of baked into the system, right?
Yeah, I have made half of, like, I'll be on a show, in Detroit, like a very successful show, making great money, and they'll hire a guy to work with me, and right off the bat, and I know this because we have agents, and agents talk, and
sure,
and right off the bat, it's double. Like, they hire him in at double where I am. Like, what is that? Like, wait a minute, right? Especially in a business where our sweet spot where we make our money is 25 to 54. That's it. Persons, men and women, 25 to 54-year-old people. And, if women listen to women and men listen to women for the most part. And so,
I think, and there's been such upheaval in your industry. Now, unlike, there are some parallels. Sometimes I find unusual parallels between, like, we don't have the same career. But technology's created some upheaval in my industry. It's easier for people to take good photos. Office people are taking photos now of buildings and architectural work. Or, hey, staff headshots. Doesn't your wife shoot the soccer games and the kids and?
We'll just take it off your Facebook page.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
At weddings, too. I get so annoyed. These beautiful wedding photographers who do these, you really have to be creative now. Because everybody, these kids, these millennials, they don't care about the food at their weddings. My son just got married. They care about the photos. And these people whipping their phone outs during ceremonies. To me, there's nothing worse, I think.
it's not just weddings. It's just everything. You go to concert and people are not experiencing the concert. They're recording the concert, or they're doing selfies at the concert, or they're they're posting all their heads down on social media. So I think it's something I'm still adjusting to, because even this podcast, I could be hypocritical about it. It's about putting out content, and everyone, even my kids are a little bit older now. They're 19 and 17. and
boy.
13, all girls. So
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, but they've been curating their social media streams since they started with their first phones around 13 or 14, and they're very concerned about what they post on Instagram and the color scheme and the color palette. So they're thinking more visually, which is great.
Great, creative,
But
right?
it's creative.
But you know what I heard in an interview with some 17-year-olds, I don't know, last year, and the standard is on social media, if you don't get a reaction in like 30 minutes, it's on to the next thing. And that's pressure for those kids, I think.
Yeah, it's a different way. Yeah, it's a whole nother psychology. We could go. Boy,
like Mason's 30, so he just missed it. Like my son it was just, Facebook was just starting.
Yeah.
Now, having teenagers is crazy. So you have 19.
17, a senior high. So Hannah is a sophomore at U of M. Yeah.
What's her deal? What is she going to do? What's her
She
interest?
just declared communications as a role or as her major.
Okay.
But she's interested in marketing and advertising, but that's such a blanket thing that doesn't say anything about anybody. But she's very interested in human behavior, media strategies, branding strategies. She's very
Shy.
She's not shy.
Not shy and
she's
smart.
very smart, and she knows that we're being manipulated by media and by advertising, and so she's kind of interested in what's under the hood of pushing those buttons of human behavior.
Look at what you made.
I know.
I know.
Well, my gene pool is pretty shallow.
Me
My wife,
too. Me too.
My
Is
wife
it your wife?
yeah, she's very smart.
Yeah. So
I'm more social. Like I'm 3 inches deep and 100 miles wide. That almost went another place.
I got it though. I know what you mean. And then there's what's the next one down? 17?
So 17, she's a senior at Catholic Central. That's Maddie. She's more like me. She's kind of, she was my boy. I call her my boy. She was my athlete, and she swam and did lacrosse, and I played sports and stuff. And then, but she's very funny, sarcastic. She's the one that'll just come up out of nowhere, and you just get a Charlie horse in your arm. It's like just smacking me.
Okay,
in a playful, fun way.
Love her.
She's
okay.
great. And then little Faith, who's 13, going to be 14 in May, and she's a seventh grader. But you knew a little bit about her, didn't you? Just in terms of like she's got cerebral palsy and she was born with a lot of drama around her entry into the world.
I don't know.
Okay, well that's maybe another podcast.
Okay,
but anyway, yeah. So she's got she's amazing. She's mainstreamed with her classmates, but she's on a special educational program, and so
what a fantastic name.
Yeah, her name's Faith.
Seriously,
yeah. Faith Kathleen. So my wife's name's Kathleen, so it's Faith Kathleen Kelly. And then, Maddie is Madeline. And then Hannah, she's still kind of mad, no H on the end.
Yeah.
So it's just H-A-N.
All right, I see what you did there. I see what's happening.
Yeah, that's her burden to bear through life.
My son was baby boy for 3 days while I decided.
Yeah.
It was either Benjamin or Mason. And the mother-in-law, a shrew of a woman. Yeah. She was a shrew of a woman. Yeah. Oh my God. So at the time, the mother-in-law at the time was called him Benji, and I thought that's it. And Mason, she said that's not after a saint. And of course now he's going to go. He's going to hell because he's not. So that's why I named him Mason, because for sure I would like him to take a fast track right to hell.
Are you particularly religious?
I was raised Catholic, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't attend church.
Yeah.
Now
I get it.
I went to all Catholic schools. Except with the exception of which we shared. We both went to Northview here in Grand Rapids, but all Catholic. St. Jude's.
Yeah.
And then my parents broke us out of St. Jude's.
Plainfield, dude.
Right on.
Fred's Pizza.
Right. Fred's Pizza right there, which they've expanded. How about that? And so that's it. So that's my,
All right. Well, so anyway, that's the kids thing. But I think back to what I admire about you, that I'm glad you're here.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk all about my admiration for you.
What do you admire about me, Brian Kelly?
What do you love about me right now? Mm-hmm. Well, I love any woman who's powerful and in radiant, kind of calling her own shots, which I know it probably didn't feel like that over the years sometimes, but I think lately it seems to be tipping more in your favor, and you have a great partnership on LAV in the mornings and the ability to do some things.
Yep.
But just to grind that out creatively every single day, you're up at what time do you get up in the morning, Michelle?
3:15.
Okay, are you just bragging or is that real?
That's true. 3:15. I hit the snooze a couple times.
Yeah.
Starts at 3:05. I hit snooze. I get up. In radio, it depends if I got a client coming in. Do I have to jump into anything dressy or I'll jump into anything? And then I work with a guy, Tony Gates, who has been working in radio for, I grew up listening to him.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you.
I'm sure you love telling him that, too.
Yeah. But I love him. I mean, it's like a brother-sister relationship. You know, we fight like brother-sister.
Yeah. But there's an ease to it when you listen to you guys on air. There's such an ease. Some other like duos, you know, they kind of force the banter, and then they seem to always be searching for those little viral clips they play at 3 or 4 in the afternoon that are just kind of these compilations of over laughing and ha 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 ha.
I've been on those shows before. I've done that before. It's not fun.
Yeah.
It's so much easier when you just don't have to. And I mean, we're both buffoons. I mean, truly. And his buffoonery is so beyond. But
he's not even trying.
No, that's
just him.
So beautiful. And he laughs at it. And so our nuggets are real. I mean, like true story, he hung upside down in a tree, hunter, for 3 hours trying to figure out how to cut himself down. I mean, and he thought nothing of that story. And I'm like, well, back up, 3? Yeah, you know, I was hanging out for the... And so it's priceless. So there's so many of those.
I have one quick story about Tony Gates, your radio partner. And I was doing a photo shoot for Laugh Fest. We got clearance from the zoo to do something with Tony, fishing in the zoo, like in one of the outside areas where there's, I don't know, it wasn't penguins, but it was like there was birds, waterfowl in it. Waterfowl, put it that way.
Okay.
So we're going to try to do this funny photo of Tony Gates fishing at the zoo. And Tony spent quite a lot of time with zoo management right at the beginning trying to bring a shotgun into the zoo for this photo shoot. And Laugh Fest, nobody knows really what Laugh Fest is. It's either the first or second year.
It's like right away, like new, right? Okay.
Well, yeah, Laugh Fest. So we didn't have any, like, people didn't really know what Laugh Fest was. They didn't know the tempo of these funny photos we were trying to do with some, you know, well-known people around town. So, you know, needless to say, Tony was very adamant about trying to bring in a shotgun. And that's, instead of a fishing pole, he wanted to be hunting the birds in the zoo. And he lost that battle.
No.
But, yeah, he did.
Wow.
Back then, the zoo did not allow him to bring a shotgun. And he was telling the guy, hey, it's not loaded. It's not loaded. Here, and he's, like, trying to show him.
Like, I'm really going to shoot
guy's like,
the
no.
thing. Bro.
I trust you. It's not loaded. Yeah, it was a thing. But, you know,
funny.
God love him. He was looking for that extra joke.
But that is funny.
It is funny.
I mean, it is funny. You know.
Can you imagine walking around the zoo, though, with it's all nothing but families, and you're carrying a shotgun? Into the zoo? And then you're in an exhibit of fish, and people are strolling by, and then they're seeing Tony with a shotgun.
There's so much wrong with that, but there's some right with it, too, though. Yeah, that's why.
He's got a funny bone. He was going for it.
This morning we were talking about the story on the air. There's this guy, and I don't know if you've watched which is, again, a whole other podcast, the HBO Michael Jackson thing, the Neverland thing.
I haven't started that one. I was still trying to get through the R. Kelly one, which has been hard, and I've basically stopped that. I didn't do it 8 times.
I didn't do it. You know, but Michael Jackson, I've always been one of these believers that he's immature, he's childlike, but really there was no. And after this, 100,000,000% all this. Like he married one of the guys. I mean, he's off his rails. He ruined these kids' lives, and he should go the way of. And listen. I was ready to go see him in London. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
I skipped school to go by The Wall when it came out, the album. Yeah. I was a sophomore. I was so excited. But he belongs the way of Bill Cosby. He shouldn't get any of his legacy. But so this morning we're on the air and we're talking about this guy. He had plastic surgery to look like Michael Jackson, and he changed his name legally to Michael Jackson. Well, now he's watched the HBO thing, so he's trying to change his name back.
Trying to unring that bell.
Right. Well, then, so the end of the story, Tony goes, oh, yeah, and he owns a daycare. And, I just can't. So it's like carrying a gun in the zoo. Michael Jackson who owns a daycare. Like, you can't write that stuff.
It's like Jared coming over to do the other Subway guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought I had a joke that would come to me.
I did a show with him. He came in to, when I worked at 96.1 before it was ESPN. It was I-96, and he came in and he sat in with us and did a show with us. And who knew he was the freak that he was, huh? Jeez.
Nobody knows anything about anybody, really. And it's all compartmentalized now.
No.
It's kind of a strange thing.
No.
You can't really, you just don't know anybody anymore.
Because you pick up somebody's phone, which I don't even want to touch anybody's phone anymore. And
I don't even go through. Do you ever go through your spouse's phone at all?
No,
I don't even like to hold her phone.
No,
like,
it's not.
You got a text. I'm like sliding it back.
Right.
Like, text.
Because it's so...
so private.
And if you really knew what people search... Because I don't think people think about the ramifications of what they're searching or doing or whatever online. And if you really saw what even like a Mother Teresa, like a really normal, nice, sweet, saintly person, maybe they looked at something odd, I mean, triple,
now there's a digital trail.
Nipple. I don't know.
I remember our neighbor kid down the street, there was a field that we made like baseball fields and all this stuff. And, it was the era of early 70s and mid 70s. And his dad had a Playboy collection. And these magazines didn't last long, which is kind of funny because... we decided that we should keep these Playboys, instead of at somebody's house, he snuck them out of the house. We should have a central spot for them. So we buried them in the ground.
Good, smart thinking.
Aren't we smart kids?
Brilliant. Yeah. Brilliant.
So, whatever. A month later, we're like, we should look at these magazines again and dig them up. And, they're... They were like they were worm food, basically.
You're not the only kid, though, who did something like that. Because we were big campers.
Yeah.
And we were camping at Wilderness State Park in Mackinac City, up there, Wilderness State Park. And in the water, there was this bag. And I thought it was a fish. I didn't know. And I, by the way, am the youngest of 5. And I was always a chunky. Tubby was my nickname. Seriously, my dad called me Tubby. Which meant love then. But now if we look back, it is so many therapy sessions later. But Tubby, I was always the one. I'll jump in cold water. I'll still do anything on a dare. I'm just that person.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to think of a challenge.
I'll do it. I'll do it. I don't know why. And I think it's because I was always heavy. And so it's true. Fat girls try harder.
Sure.
And we're funny. And so I was always the one that went into the water. And we found, it took us about an hour. We circled this thing. Anyway, I went under and I pulled it up. And it was this bag of booze that some kids had tied and hidden in Lake Michigan.
That was their stash.
Feeling right. And, who knows how long it had been there.
Right.
And I remember I brought it back to the camp and my parents were like, oh, no, you can't. I'm sure they drank it because I was. Yeah. But I think hiding stuff outside was people had forts more then. Kids had forts. Our neighbors had a boat in their backyard. We built
everything. My kids, it was hard. And I grew up with one older brother who was a year behind you at high school. Mm-hmm. But, we were boys growing up. And then I have all 3 girls. But we just spent our entire lives from basically 4 years old to high school, outside, riding bikes, building baseball fields, BMX stuff, ice skating, ice hockey, ice fishing.
And come home by the time the street lights are on.
Yeah, that was it.
Seriously, that was it.
It was very much a Stranger Things kind of without all the aliens.
We played war. We played cops and robbers. I mean, all these things that are not, acceptable now. I mean, we had, we played cowboys and First People.
Yeah.
Native Americans. I mean, first generation. I mean, but we played that. I mean, we did all that stuff. And then we had a community pool.
Yeah.
In our neighborhood. Northville Park Community School. So I was 4 years old and on the swim team. I mean, I swam. So that's, I think, where anything on a dare, our parents just threw us in that pool. Yeah.
So my kids wouldn't, they wouldn't just ramble around, which is okay. They didn't, when we moved, well, anyway, it's just neither here nor there. It's kind of a girl and guy thing, maybe. Mm-hmm. But it was just it seemed much more physical and much more like, a world where you just went and you got all bumped up and you came home with a broken arm and you just went off to the ER and you got a cast.
That was it.
Dusted you off, and you're back on your bike the next day.
I had a daredevil, my brother Vinny. He's the one just above me. Vinny.
Vinny's the coolest brother name ever.
My brother Vinny, and he.
Is it Vincent?
Nope, it's Vince. It's Vinny. It's not Vincent. It's Vince. Vince William Vinny. So it goes Tammy, Joe, Jill, and then the 2 little ones, and we were Tubby and Vinny, and so Vinny literally would build. It was when Evel Knievel was, popular. So he would build ramps with the Manikowski boys who live next door, and then the Redmond kids across the street. And so we would all lay, and then he would literally jump over us with the bike. And I was always the last one. I was always the one they landed on because And so, but he like jumped off our deck with the umbrella and ruined my mom's umbrella.
Oh, sure.
We were always on roofs and on decks and in pool. I mean, you're right. It's not. And then we had where Northview Apartments are. That was all field, and that was Dead Man's Hill.
Yes, Dead Man's Hill.
Right.
We had a tiny little motorcycle.
Come on.
Dirt bike, and I used to ride motorcycles
Dead
back
Man's
there.
Hill.
But I had to push my bike from my house, which is probably, it's probably 3/4 of a mile from my house, but we were they weren't road, and I was like 10 years old, 12 years old. So we had to push the bike uphill in both ways to this Dead Man's Hill, and then we could ride all through where those apartments were before, and we were so mad when those apartments went in. We're like,
furious.
Oh, what is this, economic development? Like, this is horrible.
Right.
This is affecting my life right here, my childhood.
My sister broke her leg on Dead Man's Hill.
The greed of these real estate people,
Can you imagine?
Who knows?
I know it.
All right, so I want to talk to you. So you've been photographed a lot in your life.
Yep.
Because you're a public person, you're always doing media. Now you've got all your social media chains, your channels. And so we did a photo shoot, but I like to ask everybody, is photography, do you enjoy being photographed?
I'm cheesy. I'm a cheeseball. And what I mean by that is, yes. I do. I'm a ham. I just have always been. Yeah. And again, I think it comes from being the youngest of 5. I had to be the loudest. Yeah. Hello, I'm here. The funniest, and I'll jump in front. I was in plays and I like it. And it's funny because there'll be people who, like in broadcast magazines, they'll interview and then they'll take pictures of you, and then they meet you in person and go, oh, like I take a pretty good photo.
Yeah, you did great.
Listen to me, I take a good, that's great, but that's also to your detriment because when they meet you, they go, oh, where's the person in the.
Well, it's both,
but it doesn't
right?
bother me.
I've shot a fair amount of well-known people, and sometimes they show up, and you're like, oosh.
Who is the one? Like, who's one person who you've shot? Because you famous people. I mean, and politicians, and you have, and your work. And I'll gush about this too before we're done today too. To me, there's photographers, and then yours is a cut above, and you always know a Brian Kelly. You have a signature picture because it looks like. It looks like a painting and a photograph at the same time. We were talking about this on the air the other morning about how this morning?
Would you like me to call in next time?
I would love it.
Next time you're talking about me, I should just call in.
Well, I would hope that, I would hope that you would just hear that somebody would call you.
Well, I listen all the time, but I might have missed that segment.
But I mean, you do have you take unique photos. And so who surprised you the most? Like, was either a jerk, an ass, or really nice, and you thought they wouldn't be? Like, what's one memorable session?
Well, I have a really good story that started out horrible and ended up great. But before I get into that, I want to tell you about. So there's a lot of just my work and my style. I appreciate what you said about it. That it has a distinct look, and I've worked very hard to get that.
I don't know how you do. I don't get it.
Well,
but yeah.
There's more lights and equipment, and as we're talking earlier a little bit about just how technology has democratized photography. It's easier to take a photo. And so I've seen segments of my business where I used to work in quite a bit 15 years ago in architectural work and just different fields. It's taken over by office people who can take a pretty good photo.
Right.
So a lot of my market has, it changes all the time. It's not good or bad. It's just always changing.
Different.
But the portrait style has really just evolved out of just really trying to make things more complicated and really control where light hits you exactly. Like you couldn't meander too far out of one spot. Like I had a mark on the floor, and if you get 4 or 5 inches off that mark.
It's very chiseled looking, yours. It's very cool. Like it's depth, or I don't know I can't find the right words. But
anyway, I didn't mean to ramble on about my process, but who was very interesting, but one of the coolest stories was Whoopi Goldberg. And so I had a photo shoot early on with Whoopi Goldberg with Laugh Fest. And we got so the trick to all these Laugh Fest photo shoots that I do is I might only have somebody for 2 minutes, I might have them for 10 minutes, or I might have them for an hour, and I don't really know too much about it until I'm actually into the shoot.
Okay.
Like how patient and how much time they'll give for the photo shoot and all this stuff. So we always pre-light. We arrive hour and a half, 2 hours before the talent does.
Okay.
And so
because you're very laid back, by the way. You're not a pushy directing
I kill them with
guy.
kindness and perceived flexibility. You don't want to do that? No problem, but I have another plan. And I just sort of lull them into what I want to do.
Perceived
As
flexibility.
opposed to, it's a perception.
I like it. All right.
And sometimes I have no control and I lose. But,
Okay.
it's just par for the course. Mm-hmm. So we're all pre-lit for Whoopi Goldberg. And we're at the Bob on the 4th floor where Eve is now, but there's a room that's got a fireplace down the hall, and there's beautiful afternoon light coming in, all set up. And then Whoopi comes in with her manager, and she just has this look like she would rather be anywhere on the planet except where we are. And we did the photo. I started to do the photo shoot, and the first thing is I had her pre-lit to sit in a chair. Or on a stool, basically. There was a funky piece of furniture. It wasn't like funky, crazy, like, oh, look at the furniture. It was just this, it was more like an ottoman kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. I'm not describing it right. But anyway, the point is, I said, great to meet you. Everything's all pre-lit, and I've got you pre-lit to sit on this stool. And she goes, I'd rather stand. First thing, and then how precise the lighting is.
Yeah, you gotta put your
so I had to move
up.
everything. I had to adjust all the lighting, and time's ticking. I might have 2 or 3 minutes with her, and now I have to adjust lighting for her to stand.
And she's already.
There's the energy.
Think she's annoyed.
You know how it is when someone comes in and they're just like you.
Mm-hmm.
It's palpable. Like
sometimes when the comics come in on Friday morning and it's 7:00 in the morning, and we gotta warm them up, right?
Crack through that.
Comfort them, right?
Crack through that veneer a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, she. So I just I said, okay. So we adjusted the lighting really quick, and then I just said, took a couple frames. She had her hands in her pockets. And then I said, I'd love for you to just maybe do something with your hands. I don't know, just, something. She goes, my hands are fine where they are.
Oh, Brian.
I was like, okay. Let me I could just tell the shoot was going nowhere. So I did. I said, no problem, Whoopi. I will just take a couple more photos of some verticals and horizontals just to cover off on what I need. I'm going to let you go. And the thing is that we had to do a VIP meet and greet with her.
Okay.
Where they were going to do a bunch of step and repeats in front. Whoopi's on Mark, and 2 people come in, and then the click.
You had to shoot those two?
I had to shoot that year for him for her.
It's a little beneath you, but okay.
Oh, thank you.
It is, but okay.
I'll do anything to get the portrait shot. But anyway, whatever I got to do. But so we're doing that shoot, and then I always try to do research with people, right? Mm-hmm. So I knew there was a couple photographers that she really liked. Also, Annie Leibovitz had done this really famous photo of her in the 90s of her it was looking down at her in a bathtub, but it was filled with milk, and just her face, her brown skin and brown face, and her hands were like emerged out of the milk. And it's a really iconic photo of her, probably one of the most iconic photos taken of Whoopi Goldberg. It was by Annie Leibovitz, of all people. And there's another photographer named Timothy White that I could find all kinds of portraits of her by him.
She must really like him.
Yeah,
okay.
So I said, I just have to tell. So we finished my shoot, and she gave me nothing for it. Nothing.
Hands in pockets.
Nothing. Just didn't.
See.
Just couldn't wait to be anywhere. So as the meet and greet, before we were waiting for this meet and greet to start, we had like 15 minutes to kill, and we're all in the same room. So what do you talk about? So I was like, I want to talk about these.
And the shoot's over. Like you're not
my
shooting.
Shoot is done.
Yeah, you're not
my portrait
using
is done.
that 15 minutes. See what kills me. Quick sidebar is if these people if they could see what the finished product was during the shoot, they would be mad respect. There would be mad love for you and respect during the shoot. So anyway, okay.
It came out okay. I mean, that's the thing about preparation is I actually love my portrait of Whoopi Goldberg, partly because of this story and how it ends up, but also how I actually like that photo of her, and she's just kind of quietly scowling at the camera. It's on my website, but it's like, it just reminds me of that day, and then it reminds me of all these moments I'm going to tell you about.
Okay.
So we're waiting for this meet and greet to start with her, and we got 15 minutes to kill. And we thought we were going to be doing portraits with her, and we're not, and things were tense. And so I just said, Timothy White, I got to tell you, some of my favorite portraits of you have been done by Timothy White. And she just flipped a switch. She went, Timothy White, oh man, he's my boy. Like she just was like, she was Whoopi. Like she was, all of a sudden she's talking about a friend of hers. And then I said my other favorite. So we talk about Timothy White for a while, and she's just warming up. Now she's touching my arm as we're talking. She's just like a different person.
Right.
And then I talked about Annie Leibovitz, the photo and the milk photo, and she's like, oh, that milk was so damn cold. And she's starting to swear now, and she's dropping like F-bombs every so often. I'm like, this is the Whoopi I thought I was going to walk in. And she's really nice. But my shoot's over. Like, I'm set up for
you
this
can't,
other thing.
right.
I can't go, hey, can we go back and do
Hey,
some more?
now that I've loosened you up.
Yeah, so anyway, we get through, the meet and greet starts, and then as people kind of meander in, sometimes there was a 1 or 2 minute lull between groups, and she'd come back, hey, Brian, like, tell me about this, or like, tell me more about Grand Rapids, and, she's like an entirely different person. So, anyway, we all wrap up all our shoots. She's leaving, and I just said, I want to thank you, Whoopi. I just want to tell you, my wife and I don't get out very much, but we're coming to your show tonight. We can't wait to see your show. She goes, I want to meet your wife. I was like, I can make that happen.
Done,
She goes,
right.
I want to see you and your wife. Will you come and meet me on our bus? She's like one of those people that doesn't like to fly.
She takes her bus. She has a bus.
Big motor
A tricked
coach.
out bus, right.
Oh,
right.
it's nice.
Super nice, right.
Super nice.
Yeah.
So she said, here's my manager. Her manager gives me his card and writes his cell phone on it. And he says, call me when you get to the bus at whatever time. And so we did that. And he's like, Whoopi's on the phone, but come to the door of the bus in 5 minutes. So we hung out for like 10, 15 minutes with Whoopi. We're doing our selfies with her and hanging out. But what I found out later was why she was in such a bad mood. She was dropped off at the Bob. Somebody freaked out on the sidewalk and was like, you're Whoopi Goldberg. Oh my gosh, like startled her right off the bus. Then she came to the elevator to go up to the 4th floor of the Bob. Mm-hmm. And that elevator is tiny if you're going up to Eve. Mm-hmm. It's a really tiny elevator. Mm-hmm. Same thing. She's going up to 4. Elevator stops on 2. Woman gets on, doesn't realize it's her. In the elevator car, she starts flipping out. You're Whoopi Goldberg, touching her, like doing all this stuff. And then she gets off on the 4th floor, rounds 2 corners, and it's her photo shoot. Like,
oh, see.
And she was just completely freaked out in the elevator.
Wow.
So that's, I'll give Whoopi a break. But,
All right.
I mean, that wasn't a good experience, but it just turned out about just doing a little bit of research and talking to people.
You can break
You can kind of flip it. But I do want that time back with her. You know what I mean?
When you say, well, you'll have another chance. I mean, she'll remember you and know you now.
I hope so, yeah.
When you said elevator, I had a weird elevator thing with Barbara Streisand.
What?
True story. I hate it when people start true stories. I'm about to lie. I'm going to lie my ass off right now.
Everything else I said is a lie, but
all
this is
a lie.
true.
This particular thing, I'm staying at the Beverly Wilshire. I work in Detroit. I went to the Beverly Wilshire all the time. We're doing the show at K-Rock in Los Angeles because the CB and the WB are now going to become the CW network, which they are now. Uh-huh. The CBS and the WB. CBS and the WB are becoming the CW, and they're having this big party on the lot. And I worked for CBS Radio at the time. They want radio stations, they want the Detroit stations to come out and be at this party. So you're going to do a week's worth of show from K-Rock, and then every night there's a different event. Oh, and it's also, there was a movie premiere, one of the Superman movies. So we were on the red carpet for that. I've done a lot of really cool red carpets, too.
Yeah.
I did the Grammys one year, which is, oh, my God.
Yeah, had to be a blast.
Peter Gabriel stood with me for like an hour. I can't even.
Was it during the So Days?
It was it was later than that, but it was, when he was touring, doing the Upside Down, when he was touring that, but he was, it was when it was in New York. But anyway, it was fun. But, so I'm at the Wilshire, I'm out, we do our show in the morning, And then I go to the beach all day, and I'm coming back because we have an event that night. I got a dinner that I have to be at that night. And I rented a car, so I'm used to Michigan driving.
Yeah.
And driving out there is a whole other level. So if you don't leave an hour, so I'm rushing back to the Wilshire, and I can't get in the lot. And I'm a guest at the Wilshire. I can't get my car in the lot. So I pull up on like the sidewalk. I get out and I go in the lobby, and I'm not being a jerk, but I'm all in my beach gear. And I said to the front desk, I go, I'm a guest here, and I can't even get. And they go, well, there's a couple parties here. One, there is a bar mitzvah here, and the other is it's Stevie Wonder's birthday party, and so there's all. And I'm like, well, whatever. I need to get. So I get in the elevator.
You pulled the LAV card?
I did. I pulled it. Do you know who I am? They're like, this is a Beverly Wilshire. Get out of here. You're not Pretty Woman. Huge mistake. Big mistake. Huge. But so I say, and here are the keys to my car. Somebody move it around. So I get in the elevator, and I'm in beach clothes, and this woman and her 2 children and her husband get on with me. So, and I'm like, oh. And she goes, I'm sorry. She goes, my sister's going to ride with us. Do you mind? And I go, all right. So I push up. The elevator goes down. I'm like, why? I'm like, okay, and I'm nice now because I'm in the elevator. It's not there. But she heard me bitching to the front desk, this woman. The elevator doors open. There's a woman all in orange, head to toe. She's her publicist. She's Barbara's publicist. And then there's Barbara. Barbara gets on. Well, this woman is Barbara's sister who was already on the elevator with me. She goes, and these are Barbara's 2 nieces and her brother-in-law. Barbara gets on, and I am like, and she looks at me, and her sister goes, she's a guest, and she's late for dinner. Like, she heard me bitch. She's a guest here. Like, don't, like, Barbara's like, why is there some, and I'm freaking, and Barbara, her hair is in my face. And she's got a trench coat on. She's a little kind of dumpy. She's in flats. Her publicist is carrying her heels. She's got this trench coat on, and now, when I was a kid, my mother had Barbra Streisand albums. I grew up, they're, to me, stage, screen.
Yeah, everything.
She's a triple, there's no bigger star on earth in my mind than Barbra Streisand.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't breathe. And her sister's looking at me like, hold it together. And I am on the elevator at the Beverly Wilshire, me from Grand Rapids, Michigan, with Barbra Streisand. Her hair's in my face, and I'm dying. And I'm like, and I want to say something, but I'm not. I'm going to respect her because she's on her way to some bar mitzvah. Mm-hmm. And so we get to my floor. Barbara gets off to let me off. And her sister said she's been at the beach. And Barbara goes, the beach? Who would go to the beach all day? Like, just like you'd think Barbara would say. And I'm like, I don't say anything because I can't breathe. Barbara gets out. What kind of
person? I would say this to Barbara Streisand. You know what I'd say? What kind of person lets other people carry your shoes, Barbara?
Yeah, Babs.
Yeah, Babs.
Barbara Streisand does.
Although I would carry
Barbara's shoes.
Yeah,
are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So Barbara gets out to let me out. She's the only one in my door. And she goes, she looks at me, and I can't help it. I go, I just threw up. Like, I mean, I didn't throw up, but I threw up. I go, Barbara, I'm your biggest fan. I love you. I've loved you for years. Oh, my God. Please enjoy your night. And she says to me, clean yourself up. I'm not.
No.
I walk in my hotel room. I got dirt from my forehead to my chin. Here I'm at the Beverly Wilshire yelling like a crazy person. Mud from a big mud from the beach that I had no idea.
She had a point.
Clean yourself up. And it was oh my God. So
you ruined your chance to
that's my brush with Barbara Streisand. I called my mom and I couldn't breathe. My mom goes, "Are you on drugs? You're in LA and you're on drugs right now, Michelle, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Oh my God." She's going, "You're on the cocaine." I'm like, "No, Mom, I can't take Barbara Streisand in the elevator." Bah. So then I went to go down and have dinner, and there is Denzel Washington. Any black star is there for Stevie Wonder's birthday.
Sure.
And there's Stevie and his wife. And Stevie, they're waiting for their car. And I'm like, "Hey, Stevie, Detroit." And he's like, "Oh, my God." He gives me a big hug. I go, "I'm here from radio." I mean, it was an out-of-body experience that night. But, yeah, that's my elevator Barbra Streisand story. Clean yourself up.
Clean yourself up.
Well, people. Like...
It all works.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to talk. We were talking about those were some good celebrity stories. I'm sure you have a million of them. I heard you interview William Shatner, and we won't go into that. But definitely, like, your job is interesting every day. I think, like, I get to meet. That's what I like about our jobs. Is I get to meet different people, and I feel like my camera is a conduit to people I would never meet otherwise, and your job is too. Because
the microphone, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm not going to start with stories, but David Lee Roth grabbed my crotch.
Really?
And the guy behind me punched him and knocked him down. Yeah. That's my David Lee Roth story.
Did you then continue to punch the other guy?
I said, I'll give you 20 minutes to stop, David Lee Roth. No, that is terrible. Look, I'm setting the movement back, aren't I, by saying that? Me Too movement, a setback. Yeah. David, he was hammered, and he grabbed, just grabbed my crotch. Crazy. I was probably 20. I was music director. There are only 11 female music directors in the country, and I was one of them. Wow. At WGRD, I got to decide what music we played. Eris Hampers was at LAV, and I was at GRD, and we were good buddies. And David Lee Roth was in town, was in Detroit, and Denise George, she was a record rep and her husband, and he grabbed me, and her husband saw it and, like, punched him and knocked him down. It was, like, some great story.
Wow.
I know.
Awesome.
All right, I'm sorry. Now I got us.
No, but we talked about you being a funny person growing up.
Yeah.
There's two parts to my question.
Okay.
One will lead into the roast, but also a roast of Dave Dyer. Mm-hmm. But also, I like to ask people as part of the podcast, because most people have been extremely accomplished at what they do and whatever it is that they do. Mm-hmm. But when you got into media and radio, when did you feel like that 10,000 hours idea where you felt like, how long did it take for you to really feel like you knew what you were doing and you felt confident and that I have, like, divorced from ego and being egotistical.
That was at my 20s.
Where you were like, I'm good at what I do.
You know, a minute. I'll tell you, in this business, let me tell you what, I get paid for how many people like me. True. I get my whole life is based on ratings.
Yeah.
And ratings are, do you like me or do you not like me? And if you like me, how many of you like me? And if how many of you like me, are you the right age group, then I'm going to get some money for it. So if there's
and it's never enough.
No.
So even if a lot of people like you, your bosses and everybody else, they want more.
So if you're insecure, this is not your business, because you will be, because there'll be a million people that say they love you, but the one that says, I didn't like that show, that can't bother you. So really, I'm in the business where how much you like me literally is how much I eat. I mean, that's how I get paid, based on if you like me. So it's so bizarre, but it's the truth. So it took me probably through my 30s when I hit Detroit. I'll tell you what, I got a gig in Detroit, and it was a big gig and a big deal. And they called me. I was working here, and they called and they said, "We love you. You have to come to Detroit." And it took them a year. I said, no. And then
were you trying to negotiate, or it was just like...
I just didn't want to do it. And then I found out that I have a little bit of a gift in negotiation. That's my dad. My dad is a bargain man. We would come home from school, and he'd go, I'd bring kids, and he'd go, "Your parents need a sink? I got a garage full of sinks." Now, I don't know where the sinks came from. Maybe off a truck. We don't know. But my dad was always negotiating. He was a salesman. There's always some deal.
He's going to hustle those sinks to somebody.
Darn right. You need a sink. Tell your mom need a sink. I got it. Get two for, And so I became a wheeling dealer at an early age. And so when I got the gig in Detroit, it was a lateral move, but it was, people recognized me quick. 3 weeks there on the radio, I was at a baseball game, and they were like, Michelle. So the next year, I got rid of my agent, who was 10%, some big LA agent, and negotiated for myself. That's when I knew. Because I got up and walked because my dad always said...
Because other people validated you personally without this person sort of leveraging whatever they thought for you.
And there's a thing called Morning Show Boot Camp where I go every year, and I've been going for 30 years. And when I first started going, I was just this young girl in the business. Now I actually do a seminar at it. And I coach.
Yeah, you're mentoring them.
Yes, and I find talent for our company. So that's when I know. And I don't know a lot, but I know this business, and I know that I know this business. But it took till about, it took to my late 30s. And I'm 54 now, so... I think
well, that's a lot. I think any creative, I talk to a lot of young photographers and people that want to do things creatively. It doesn't even have to be in photography, but there's a point, if you can survive long enough at the beginning, that there is a switch
horrible.
that it is horrible, and you're also your most insecure, and you don't really know a lot. And but if you can survive that, then it's a chicken or egg thing. Like no one asked me to shoot any high profile people, if you want to call them celebrities, or just high profile people in general, until I had high profile people in my book.
It's like the chicken or the egg.
Yeah,
that's
no
what
one's
going to
give you a flagship radio show until you've had a flagship radio show.
I mean, I had a guy say to me, I'm pregnant, I'm 23, and this is a corporate guy, head of our company, comes in to interview, shuts the door and says, I've always wanted to screw a pregnant woman. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you had to put up with.
I can't imagine
that.
Can
you? And I just went,
I do. I know.
You know what I did? I
understand.
laughed it off. I laughed it off and went, oh, hey, today's not your lucky day, but you just keep going. And in my 20s, if I were to stop and think about all of the
misogyny stuff,
in this business, and you get these insecure guys who hide behind a microphone, who here comes a girl who is getting a little bit of attention and they just want to keep you down.
Yeah.
I've had that. I've had probably
that's what
10
in a
partners
roundabout
that
way
are
I
like
started
that.
about ways to, without me project. I mean, those are things I assume that any woman in that industry would have to battle through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s.
For sure.
And still now. No, I mean, it's not necessarily, no magic switch was flipped off on that.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I've admired just as a business person, because you've not only had to develop audience and that likability, you had to manage all the contracts, people, politics at stations, changes of ownership of radio stations. Like it's a landmine every time you turn around.
Well, and I think this about you too. I just think
Are we going to talk about me?
You're very nice, and I think people go, "Oh, the nice guys finish last." I don't believe that. I think every time you have always made even at, because I went away for a while and came back. And when I came back, you're like, I was at an event, and it was at the Van Andel Institute, and you came up to me and you said, "Hey, Michelle," and I'm like, "Hey," and you go, "I'm Brian," and you're just. It matters, and I've always been nice. Somebody wasn't very nice to me. A female wasn't very nice to me when I first started in radio. She was really mean and really jealous and I thought, that's not. And I think just being nice really does go a long way, because people don't forget you. People won't forget you.
Well, I appreciate you said that.
Yeah.
It is, it's a double-edged sword, because I think there's times I could do better by saying no to some things, or being, my default is to say yes, and that can kind of burn you out on certain things. It can happen in your personal life, your private life, but I'll tell you that what really changed me wasn't really necessarily, obviously my parents raised me to be a certain way and be nice, and I think it is in my DNA for sure.
Sure.
But it's having some crisis outside of yourself that gives you perspective, right? So we talked about my daughter, arriving with lots of drama and some other things that we've struggled through as a family and made it through just as like, I don't have time to be an asshole to people. I really don't.
So
I don't
much
have
energy.
the energy anymore.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Like I care, but I don't have time to I don't know what another person's going through.
I'll tell you, I was driving home from work one day, and the car in front of me wasn't going as fast as I'd like him to go.
Yeah.
And they were not. And I was on where Monroe turns into Plainfield. I was on Plainfield, by the Choo Choo Grill there at Leonard.
Yeah.
And I was so mad, and I even honked my horn, and he kind of pulled over to let me go by, and I looked, and it brings tears to my eyes to say it even. It does. I'm so embarrassed. Here's a guy looks like it's an older guy. His wife just got out of the hospital. She's in bandages. He's gingerly driving her home. Here's this dipstick behind him who wasn't going, you know what I mean? And to me, that was and that actually was a turning point in my whole life. That made me go, well, you don't know what somebody else is going through, and you're not any
you don't.
better.
I remember some of the things in our family and our health of our kids is much better now than it was. But and we're fine as a family. But it's but that tempered me to one thing to be really tough and really strong.
Yeah.
Because I can't control things. You can't protect people from things, health and all that stuff.
But your job, you are in a very competitive career. And so how do you maintain the competitive edge? Why are you the call instead of anybody else in this town?
It's not easy.
Your work is fantastic, but there has to be more. You have to be savvy.
No, I think I have been. My wife helps with some of that in terms of like it is. But I'm running the business. I don't want to give the idea that.
No.
I mean, she's running things in a way that. But I sound stuff off of her all the time. There's a big job coming up. I talked to her about estimates. I don't really have a business partner. My wife's my business partner, but she's not.
Because you trust her and she's smart.
Well,
right?
and she's smart, and she's been, she's very, very smart. And she's also, I'm wrapped up as a creative, and I want people to like me. I want to do this job. I don't want to be difficult. I want them to use me again. And, like, that gets into, like, what is your true value? Like, you have the same thing as a host and a market. Like, how do you negotiate that? When it's you, it's really hard to do that.
Right. You're the product.
I'm the
right.
guy. I'm the product.
Right.
So,
right.
I forget where you went.
No, I mean, how do you stay competitive? How do you, because you're nice. Certainly. How do you edge out the guy next to you?
Well, I try to just every day get better at what I'm doing. I'm still not done learning. I still want to learn about lighting. I still want to do better at post-production and toning and retouching and all those things, but continue to hone things in a way that are hard to replicate. So in some ways, my value and perceived value is that other people in this region or other parts of the country, there's less people that can do what I do if you want that.
Or that can see what you see.
Well, that's the other aspect. Because
I don't see how you see. I mean, you talked about lighting upstairs at the Bob, and I would have never noticed daylight. I mean, that's
right. Well, that's part of it, but then there's also like a big part of this podcast is there is an exchange between the photographer, me, and the sitter, like you today, and we you have to make yourself. You had to make yourself somewhat vulnerable to me to really give me a different type of photo, a little different angle than just Radio Michelle.
Right.
And this is a promo. Hello. Yeah, no, and we work through that, but there's just a way. But in that process, there's a connection that's made somehow. Just through that process and trust. There's an exchange of trust.
For sure.
So after that trust, then that has always happened through conversation, and these conversations have continued. But when the shoot ends, like the conversation ends. So here's where I want to drill in and be able to take that connection that you feel and maybe extend it a little bit longer into a conversation. So that being the premise of the podcast, but that's one aspect. There's a lot of great technical photographers or video directors. They're technically proficient. They are obsessed with gear and lenses, but their portraits are soulless. Like they don't have that connection. Yes,
okay.
Yeah. And it's, there's people who are way better at what I do. There's people that are always...
I would be willing to bet, though, a guy like a Whoopi Goldberg or somebody, when they see how you've captured them, I would imagine they get back with you. I always think if I'm, an Ed Asner or somebody, and I look at that photo, I have to call you or send you a note and say, this is beyond. Because I don't think you don't, again, during the shoot, you don't see what you see. I don't see what you see.
Well, some of the magic, quite frankly, is done after. Like I haven't, not to use too many stupid metaphors, but the raw file that comes out of the camera is just a platform. I get it as close as I can to what I'm envisioning, but after that, it's digital tools. It's a little retouching here, it's a little bit of color and shading and different sort of. But that's. You can't separate these things anymore. It's all one process,
Yeah.
But, some people I've had relationships with people that I've met instantly, and then I've worked for them later, or I've done other photo shoots for them, or they've just flat out licensed the thing that I shot for them, even if it was for like Laugh Fest or something, where that happens. But also, Whoopi Goldberg's been shot by Annie Leibovitz. She's been shot by Simi the Watt. So, she's rolling into the Midwest Grand Rapids here to go do this little comedy festival. She's not expecting a very good photo shoot, which sometimes plays into my hands.
I was just going to say.
So they're not expecting a lot, and then they see... they just see the extra care and attention, and then the result that we send them low res, so we don't send them high res.
Because I always think that's why I sent you a note, because I thought, this guy, you're out of my league. And what I mean by that is, everybody wants, in our business, we need promo pictures and promo shots. And again, I don't want to say, just take it off my Facebook page. I would like to have something. And I'm like, are you like millions of dollars? Like, because I think your work is so
well, it's
far
double-edged. I
above.
appreciate you perceive that.
Mm-hmm. That's how I kicked my way into this podcast, by the way. I kicked your door open going, you're taking my picture.
Yeah, you did, but it worked out for me because you were on my list since we met at the roast. So we'll wrap up this photography thing. But the part of it is that it's a double-edged sword. I'm grateful people perceive whatever they perceive of my work, right? That's great, and that's a good platform. The barrier is that people don't necessarily might be like you, or like, oh, he'd never be interested in doing that, or I don't have a budget for this, or I don't have, like, they just think it costs a lot of money. And the truth is, I work with small companies, I work with startups, I work with Fortune 500 companies. I travel around the country doing shoots. Like, I'm going to find a way to hopefully find a yes, if I can.
Okay.
If sometimes I just can't make it work.
Like, will you hold a check until it's payday?
You do work in radio, don't you?
Will you find a yes? Like, if I write it, you'll hold a check till pay. I'll find a way to find a yes.
Yeah. Well, it's you have to, and to be really busy and consistently busy over 21, 22 years is have to work with everybody. You can't just wait for marquee jobs, because you know what? I get better and I learn something with every single job. It doesn't matter. I try not to phone in any jobs.
Right.
And get better.
Good.
But
okay.
The roast.
So
we were both our friend Dave Dyer, and if everyone's listened to every single episode of this podcast, which I'm sure everybody has.
Right, millions.
Millions.
Well, especially this one now.
Well, now, yeah.
You've now arrived. Good luck. I mean, rating spike.
Yeah.
Michelle McKormick, let's what? Where?
I need more of that.
Yes, please.
So our mutual friend, Dave Dyer, was being roasted by his comedian friends. And because you'd worked with Dave on radio for years, and he'd been a regular guest, and then you actually co-hosted a show together for a while, correct? Mm-hmm. Or at least he had a spot on a certain day.
He sure did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you survived that. Mm-hmm. And him. He, you, I don't know what that means.
We are buddies.
Yeah, you are buddies. So anyway, when they put the dais together, I was on the dais because Dave's my childhood friend and still one of my best friends, if not my best friend in the world.
By the way, I never knew that till the roast.
Really?
He told me that Brian Kelly's one of our really good friends, but I didn't realize about the childhood growing up.
You just thought he was bragging.
Yeah, okay, Dave. He's big time me before. It's a long story. And Meyer, I went, hey, Michelle McKormick. He went, hey, and he kept walking. I went, that little bastard, that fat little bastard, just big time me. By the way, that's when he was fat, Dave.
He's not fat anymore.
No, he's not anymore.
He's slim.
Whatever.
Dave. Makes me sick.
CrossFit. Okay.
So we were both on the dais, and we both had to write our little bits, taking down some of the other people on the dais, and then also we had to do a funny little bit about Dave, and roasts are brutal.
Which is...
And there was no cameras, no phones, no recording in this thing.
Which is a sweet spot for me.
Yeah.
I like brutal humor. I do.
You came out a swinging.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
Well... yeah, mean is good. Listen, I'm not a mean person.
No,
but
the jokes were so well crafted and rooted in some, real experiences that made them just land really hard.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I didn't realize I was following. I followed. Oh, I love him so much that I can't think of his name.
Which guy? I can cut this part out.
Okay, dark hair. He's the cute, Matt Lauria. Okay, Matt Lauria. Okay,
Matt Lauria. Yeah.
So I follow Matt Lauria, and Matt is a comic, and I think he's funny, but he maybe drank a little bit too much, and so I started it with I wasted all this time worrying about following you, So that was my icebreaker.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
But it was outside of what you'd written, and I remember I saw you backstage before the show. I
was nervous.
I was so nervous.
Yeah, me too.
I've never been more nervous for anything.
I said that you and I were saying that. I said I hate every bit about this, but I had it written word for word.
Right, and I spent more time on that. I spent days on that.
Yep.
And I didn't have time to do it either. But it was like there was something at stake that just is crazy. But we were talking backstage. But your ad-libs, like your just improvisation in the moment, reacting to the event that night and digging on Matt Lauria and him being drunk. And then there's sidebar Kevin Young, who rest his soul, is gone now.
Yeah.
But it was just a fun night. But I saw another side that was like a little less... I think you're freewheeling on the radio, but when it's a roast, you get to really unload both barrels.
Yeah.
Bring it back to Tony Gates and the zoo.
I mean, there like the comedy, the stuff that's funny to me is the stuff that's shocking. Like I love shock. I mean, I like uncomfortable humor
here and there.
And it's funny. I thought the same about you too. I thought, God, your stories about growing up were so funny, and and it's funny because all these comics go, what a surprise. You guys were funny. Oh, who knew that you'd be, I knew I was funny. That too, oh, look at you two were funny, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
One of my favorite lines, and I know the Yan family, so Kevin Yan passed away. We've talked about him on another podcast, but, he was a great actor and a good friend of Dave Dyer, and they did a bunch of videos, shorts together. But he's a heavier guy, always a bigger guy. And you worked with him back at the.
I've known Kevin for years. Kevin, we've been friends for years.
He was a producer at LAV and Kevin.
Well, further than that, when my son was small, he was in Mighty Might skiing, and Kevin at Cannonsburg Ski Area. Kevin ran that joint, so Kevin and I became friends years ago. And Kevin is the one who said, he looked at me probably 30 years ago and said, "You're funny. Don't let anybody walk on you." Kevin Yan said that to me.
No, that's awesome.
And it meant so much to me.
That gave me chills right there because
he said
it's like, that's
don't let
crazy.
anybody walk on you, because men were steamrolling me, and he's like, don't let anybody walk on you. You're funny.
Yeah. And he knew the end. He knew without saying it. He kind of knew what you're going for. You meant it in a business sense,
and he was right, and it worked, and it did. And I
Mm.
reminded him of that all the time. In fact, I reminded him of that night. At the
one of my favorite moments of the whole roast is when you looked back at Kevin and you're like, "Can you hear me?" You're yelling at Kevin like he was old and couldn't.
Are you awake?
Are you awake, Kevin?
I'm telling them hello. Yeah.
Those are my funny. His family's been very nice. His sons have all said they love just they love hearing great things about his dad. And there wasn't a sweeter soul on the planet than him. I don't think in the scheme of things. And what a talent!
And what a sudden he went suddenly, and it was just shocking. He went suddenly, and
it was only a week or two after the roast.
Yeah.
That's sad, but we all have a great place in our hearts for him.
And at his, there was a little ceremony for him. What do we call it? Memoriam, whatever we want to call it, get together. Dyer's speech for him was some of the most eloquent I've heard Dave Dyer speak. Was at
we didn't know that eloquence was in him, really.
No, and it was
that
was
heartfelt.
that was a tearjerker. That was really nice.
Yeah, it was really.
But it was a fun night.
It was all fun.
And I feel like you're one of those people that's like in the. Like, I know you, but I don't know you. And so I was very excited when you said, "I want to come and do my podcast." I'm like,
well, I felt the same about you. I mean, you're just you're in the ether of the community from not only just what you do as a community, you do tons of nonprofit work. I mean, you're always hustling and doing good in the community. I don't mean that in a golly gee, you're doing good, Michelle.
I am good.
Well, you are good, but you're not a do-gooder. It comes from a place in the community that you're trying to further people's causes because people need help, and I think that's a great platform to work from, and you have a platform that you can affect some change and opinions on things.
Something, and I found this out too not recently, I guess in the last 20 years, something that's so small to me can be so big to somebody. Like just saying their name on the radio or their cause on the radio, which is nothing for me. And our company allows us to do that. They give us freedom to do that. Is such a big deal to them or can help somebody. I mean, you're silly if you don't,
Yeah.
If somebody said to you, "Can you snap a photo of these children who are Make-A-Wish kids and all they want is," what are you going to say? No. I mean, it's so small to you to snap a photo.
I'll let them know where to write the check.
You'll let them know what it costs, and the lighting has to be perfect. But other than that, you'll do it.
And
they have to be in all good moods.
They have to hit their marks. I want them in and out in 10 minutes.
No sourpusses. Yeah. Come on now. But so
I survived
it's
Whoopi. I'm not going to do kids.
That's a great story, Whoopi's story.
I do tell a lot. I don't know that many people have heard it though. Like it seems like it's a great dinner conversation story. Or sometimes I'll tell a class if I go talk to a college or a high school or something. But what do you want to talk about that we don't know? What else don't we know about you? Just in terms of your life. Oh, I know what it is. Because we talked about being sort of tempered by crisis and some health things, and some things that you've had. I know you've had some struggles around just over the years with health.
Yeah,
and it's changed. I'm sure it's change and reframe some of your perspective about things?
You know, it's weird. I went to my life was changed about 4 years ago. I had this disease that presents itself as rheumatoid arthritis, and it's like a chondrosarcoma, however you say it. And it's these little spots on your bones, and it's painful. It can be painful, and it's and it can wreak havoc with your immune system. And my joints are all swollen. They couldn't figure out what it was. Blah. And so I went to a holistic guy. There's a guy, he's from Holland. And he's 60 and
Holland,
he looks 40.
Michigan,
Holland,
or the Netherlands?
The Netherlands. And he's here in Grand Rapids. And he's a big deal, this doctor. It's hard to get in. Another patient has to sponsor you. It's like getting into the Knights of Columbus.
Like
you got to get
mafia.
sponsored. Yeah.
You got to be made.
You got to be made. Exactly. You get kissed on the cheek. No, that's when they're going to kill you, right? Anyway, I went to him. His name's Dr. Denbor, this guy. And I was 220 pounds. My joints are all swollen. I was miserable. But I always look good in a car.
I'd love to be 220 right now, actually.
I'll tell you what, I looked thin. Like I carried my weight below, so I was always pretty in a car. I'm not getting out of the car. I always look good in a car. And so
I've heard that before. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
and
it's true. I always look good in a car. I mean, it's true because from up here. Mm-hmm. So I walked in there and he goes, the inflammation in your body is the worst I've ever seen. And this is a guy so he said, cut out wheat, sugar, and dairy. I missed 57 days of work that year. 3 years ago.
I remember you were, and Dave was subbing in quite a bit for you there.
I was out, and Tony's like, what the hell? Come on. And we were just getting going. And so, and they did surgery. They have to scoop these little things out of you. They did my jaw. They scoop these little things out of your bones. And it's crappy and it's painful and meh. And, you feel, there are millions of people who have things worse, but you feel pouty and bad. And so.
Well, can I just interject one thing? Because I talked about, other people have so there are silver linings in a lot of the stuff that happened with our kids and my daughter, but it's okay to be mad about that stuff. Yeah, it's still on me. Yeah, it's still it's okay to say that sucks.
It does, yeah.
But eventually you pull through. But anyway, sorry.
So he said, cut out wheat, sugar, and dairy. You're never going to be able to do it because you're type A. And I did it. And it was super hard, and then it got super easy. Wheat, sugar, dairy, and the weight fell off, which I did. That was just to buy side. The swelling went down. I stopped eating packaged food.
It was just truly through diet.
And then I thought, I'm going to go all the way, and I'm cutting out all animal products because I've always been an animal lover. Watched a couple too many PETA videos. And so I did it, and I put on some weight. Because sometimes I'll allow sugar, even though I'm supposed to cut out sugar because, when you're vegan, you don't get any. But it's easy. It's way easier than I thought it would be.
You look healthy. You
Thank
look good. You look fantastic.
I'm good. I'm comfortable now.
Yeah. Well, you must feel better, which just adds to everything else. If you have more energy to get through your day and it starts at 3 a.m, you got to be kidding me. It's got to feel like a new lease on life.
Yeah. So that's it. But
but through that process, my point is it sort of tempers you and it sort of creates some empathy for situations that you've never really considered.
It also, like you said, you learn to say no. I was a yes person too. It taught me to say no more. Yeah. And then it puts more, that's going to sound kind of deep. There's way more power in the yes when you say no sometimes.
Well, I was almost said that during the thing. It's so that's why I asked if you were negotiating when you said no about going to Detroit for a year. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes when you say no to things, then the pot gets
They want you more, right? Yeah.
But I don't do that intentionally. Like usually when I say, I'm not that, not that confident when I'm doing this. Like, let me say no to this, and they'll come back with piles of money.
No, but there are times when really you shouldn't be doing things, but you do them because that. And I've learned to not if still again what I do. It's not like I'm cutting someone open with a scalpel. It's radio.
Yeah, right.
The sun comes out the next day. It's just radio. If I make a mistake, somebody's kidney doesn't get misplaced. It's just. Oh, well, life goes on. It's free, it's radio. So, yeah.
Well, it's good to see your health journey and that you're feeling better and there's that. So, but yeah, when you miss 57 days of work a year, you're probably worried about more than your health, right?
Company, what are they going to do? And I'm fortunate. We have our company is based out of Atlanta, and the programming guy, the head of programming, our VP of program, big whoop-de-whoop, happened to have been, we were kids together starting out, and I've known him for years, and he's like, I got you. And so we have really good, Cumulus Radio, we have really good programming guys, and those are the guys who decide, what you have. And so we're lucky in that respect. So our company's been very, very cool to me. So
awesome.
So there's that. And the other thing is I'm I'm like a cat lady, only a dog lady. Like really? I talk to my dogs all day. Like I sit with my dogs. Like I do voices. I do cartoon voices. That's my other passion. That's why I talked to Brian Vander Ark.
Are they impressions or your own?
I do cartoon voices.
I do a lot of them. Oh, sorry. You're like, no, she just broke into one. But I do. That's my other thing. I sit around and do all different voices.
What
that's
were you telling Vander Ark? What did you say?
Brian Vander Ark does cartoons. He voices cartoons. He's got a company that they do this. They do a lot of kids stuff. And I have been begging him. The kid's iPad and the voice. Yeah,
no, I do know.
And I want to do cartoon voices for him because my whole life, even as a kid, I did cartoon voices. That's been my dream, to do cartoon voices and sound effect voiceovers just with my voice. So that's
the goal.
That's the other thing.
Brian Vander Ark's,
I want to work. I want to do cartoon voices.
Yeah,
I would love to get a gig doing that. Yeah. So those are my two things, and I'm a crazy animal, and I would like to have a goat. That's all there is to know about me.
Do you have property for a goat?
No. I live in the city. No, I just want one.
Just like the goats.
They're so cute, the little goats, and they need, I live in a big brick Tudor, an old house built in 1923.
Yeah.
The same guy who did the Meadowbrook Mansion designed, I live in Riverside Gardens. It's near Riverside Park, Coit. And I had a squirrel in my house the other day and shot video of it. He was swinging and I let him out. But once in a while, I'll see a mouse. I don't want to. And they're horrible for your house, but I'm very...
Yeah.
I'm kind of weird. You asked what else there is to know about me. That's it.
Well, you didn't have to share that much. But that's great. I love it.
Those are my things.
Well, thanks for coming in. I just, it was great to connect on another level. We've sort of floated.
Was that boring?
In
Was I boring? Was this boring?
No.
Look how insecure. Was I boring? Was it good? What was the best part? Was my part
I'm going to go back and see how the Nielsen ratings and downloads are. I'll get back to you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm so excited to see. I know that you took a lot of photos. I'm excited to see them. But I am, I have the utmost respect for you.
Well, likewise. Thank you. It's fun to, the podcast, this is working because I like being able to spend more time with people. This is a little more time with people.
You just need better microphones. Next time I come,
circle.
this tin can.
I want to thank everyone for joining us. This is Michelle has to go.
So embarrassing.
She's like 400. She's not satisfied with $400 mics. I do have two of them and headphones. It was a kit. It was it was a kit.
Get yourself a microphone. I'll steal one from the radio station for you.
Would you?
I'll bring it by for sure.
Bring me Tony Gates'
for
mic.
Sure.
And then I'll have it disinfected and then I'll use it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. It's great to see you. Well, that was fun. And I'm still waiting for Tony Gates' headphones. Michelle's not brought them to me. Not sure if I want them, but that was the deal. And she said she would steal Tony Gates' headphones and gift them to me. So let's make that happen, all right? Hey, to close this out, just want to remind you, check out our website. It's beautiful, people. I really like it. My daughter, Hannah, helped me design it and did a lot of heavy lifting on the design. And what's cool about the website is you can, every guest has their own episode page. And on there, you'll see a lot of my favorite portraits that I shot of them just before we sat down to, record the podcast. And you'll also see a lot of video clips that I've cut out, a lot of video clips, bonus material that highlight our conversation. So it's really a multimedia podcast where you can go to that episode page, you can listen and stream to the entire conversation that you're listening to now, but also you can look at all the portraits and see all the video clips and read more about each of our guests. Each one, I've crafted a nice little bio of them. So get out there, peeps. Let's have a great week and, let's go get it. Have a great week.